that's a big question, isn't it?
Mm.
So what I believe healing to be is finding that place of self-acceptance. So knowing that you'll be okay, that you don't need closure, that you don't need to change anything in your life, that you are, and you always will be, a complete whole person exactly as you are. But I really feel that healing comes from that space where just knowing that you'll be okay. Yeah, that is a very deep question.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, the first thing you said was acceptance, right? And it's interesting because a documentary came out on Iconic last week called Body of Evidence. And it was all about how, for instance, obesity has become normalized in society and in the media, and how, years ago you'd have, slim models wearing bikinis, whereas now it's obese people wearing bikinis, and they're trying to say, well, this is now healthy.
Yeah.
Now, it's quite interesting because, as I'm sure you know, quite often when people get to a big size, it's often because it's a protection from the trauma that they've received, previously, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So from a healing point of view, I wouldn't suggest that anyone beats themselves up about it. Like if if anyone's listening to this and they're overweight, first of all, don't beat yourself up about it, right? Don't punish yourself because you're overweight, but try to look into the reasons as to why you're overweight. Now, some people say, well, if someone's overweight, they're eating too much, they're not getting enough exercise, X, Y, and Z. But to me, that's a symptom of the problem, right? If they're eating too much, well, why are they eating too much? Is it comfort eating?
Yeah.
Right. Or is it just because they need that physical barrier to feel protected?
Yeah.
Right.
Also, I just, sorry to cut in, I just wanted to say also as well, for a lot of people, I mean, I've definitely experienced in my own life, like if there is unprocessed trauma within the system, eating makes you feel whole. So for example, like I used to have this kind of void in my belly, like I couldn't feel it. That's one of the things that kind of set me off on this whole path. Like, why have I got this void in my body? And food is like the density, it creates density within the body. So it's like, oh, I'm eating so I can actually feel that part of my body, as opposed to it being numb.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. And again, this was discussed in last week's episode. Because if someone has an emotional, let's call it an emotional hole, let's call it, and we call it emotional eating. So someone will eat things that make them feel better. But the way I look at that is they're trying to resolve an emotional problem with a physical solution.
Yes.
Which isn't going to work in the long term. It might make you feel better for 5 or 10 minutes until your blood sugar crashes, right? And then you'll probably feel worse. But I think it's important for anyone that's in that kind of situation, if they've starting to realize, actually, I'm eating to feel better about myself or to feel better within myself, that perhaps food isn't the answer. Perhaps there's another way for you to potentially deal with the underlying issue, and I'm sure we're gonna come on to talk about some solutions a bit later.